Oh God! Hey guys! Hey everybody! It's Safi and Marco. Dish out on movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. Oh God! And it's just Marco here once again. Oh, ugh. Okay, I mean just. Oh. God, 2024 has been a bad year for movies. Because I am here today to review Blink Twice. Oh. And no, I'm not in the bathroom right now. I'm not going to the bathroom right now. This movie... Oh, I mean, I can't believe that I sat through this entire thing. Because they already advertised this movie as like a MeToo movie, and they advertised it as something as like an agenda movie, a message movie. But I thought I will give this movie credit. It has a great cast. I mean, this is pretty much like the best cast that you could get, like in terms of, I think like this year, like this is probably my favorite cast. Every single actor basically is pretty damn good, or at least they could be pretty damn good with a good script. And I like movies like this that are thrillers, mysteries, suspense movies. Oh. So this movie, it is Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut. I think the ironic thing is that because honestly, like after watching this whole movie, I'm kind of disturbed. I mean, this movie really is not the feminist movie that it wants to be. It's almost like the opposite. It's like such a bizarro world, like feminazi movie where it's like, see, it's gotten so bad now that you can't look at this movie and say like, yes, this is the message we want to send. It's the same thing with Barbie, with like the voter suppression of like, it's okay that we're suppressing all the kids from voting and having them all like kill each other because it's like, we get to stay in power and we get to do what we want to do. And it's like, that typical thing of like, we can do bad stuff and it's okay, but if men do bad stuff, it's bad. And that's basically the message of this movie. There are some things that they do, obviously, that are warranted based on what's going on, but there are other things where it's like, yeah, this is really, really questionable. So anyways, I mean, Jesus, I mean, and fuck spoilers. Like, if you care about spoilers with this movie, get out. Okay? And get out is a pun intended. This movie, Zoe really wanted to make like a Get Out movie, but for Me Too. And the first thing that she forgot to do was make a feminist movie. And we will talk about it because before this movie came out, there were several like things that happened that are worth discussing. Number one, this movie was supposed to be called Pussy Island. Honestly, I think that title would have been good for this movie because this movie is supposed to be kind of part satire. It is supposed to be kind of like over the top like that. But at the same time, I actually think that Blink Twice it's a better title because it's more about the thriller aspect of the movie. I mean, the thing is that this movie is not really completely a satire. It has satirical elements here and there, but then for a lot of the movie, it's just straight up thriller, It's thriller until it has to have some satire sprinkled in, like pepper, salt and pepper, seasoning your food, And then another thing that happened was that right before this movie came out, and see, this is what I mean by this movie not being a feminist movie, and by this movie having some kind of a questionable thing going on. Zoe said that she really loves Roman Polanski movies. I mean, after everything that guy did to that little girl, after what he did to Sharon, that of course nobody even really talks about and nobody even cares about, after all that, you like his movies? And that's the thing that you want to say right before your MeToo movie comes out? Really? Really? I mean, really? I mean, because it's like, yeah, I can tell after watching this movie, I see that you love Roman Polanski a lot. I mean, you really, really love him. Because this movie, wow. Okay, so this movie is all about this main character. I can't even remember her name. It's because they spend the majority of the movie, almost every line of dialogue is, "Are you having a good time? Are you having a great time? Yes, I'm having a great time." That's the majority of the dialogue in this movie. Like, what's Channing Tatum's character's name? Isn't it like King Tech? Yeah, I guess I remember that. I literally just got out of this movie, and I'm forgetting it, just like the women in this movie are, like, forgetting and having, like, memory problems. So that should show you how bad this movie really is. So it starts off, and she's, like, a waitress or something, and she deals with, like, sexism in the workplace, you know, being told to smile, you know, being told to be a pleasant human being. That's wrong. You know, nowadays you have to look like the girl from Long Legs who just looks like she's constipated for 2 hours. And that's what I'll say about this too, is that, like, none of the messaging in this movie felt real or natural at all. It all just felt like it had to be there for some reason, because that was, like, the goal of the movie. Like, none of the, like, the thing at the beginning where he's like, you need to smile, and you need to be a better waitress, or whatever he was saying, like, none of that felt like it was, like, actually happening. It didn't even feel satirical, because she was already, like, acting like a normal, like, kind of smiley, pleasant person. She wasn't really acting like she was, like, downtrodden or upset about something, so, like, that didn't work at all. And then she I guess she's in love with King Tech, and she's really, really, I mean, he has some sort of a past allegation, a sexual misconduct allegation, and he did the whole thing where he got quote-unquote therapy, and then he took a break from his company or whatever. But she's still really in love with him, and she wants to meet him, and her friend, who's also a waitress, they get into this party where he's there, and I guess they also work there too. I don't know. They don't really spend much time with this, but it ends up to where Channing Tatum's character meets her and then likes her and invites her and her friend to this island that is his island. So it's kind of like an Epstein Island type of situation here. Although, yeah. So they get there, and they have to give their phones up, and then they start having memory problems, and just something seems off. Like there's discrepancies in time and things, like there's dirt in the main girl's fingernails, and it's like, what's going on here? Something bad. But another thing about this movie is that it has Gina Davis. That is also a big red flag, because Gina Davis is like one of the ultimate Hollywood feminazis. She's one of the worst ones. You know, she's one of those ones who's counting the lines of dialogue that women have in movies. And she's in this movie as she's kind of like Samuel L. Jackson's character in Django. Like, that's what she could have been if this movie was actually written well. But instead, she's just kind of there the whole movie. Is like, the one evil woman. And it's like, yeah, her character really sucked. She was probably one of the top worst characters, but all the characters were really the worst characters. I mean, these characters, they didn't even feel like satire characters. You know, like, you had Christian Slater, all he does the whole movie is just take pictures of people. It's not creepy or anything because it's like, there's never any points to where he's taking a picture and it's like they have to hide how they feel for the picture. Like, there's never any moment where he's like, oh, something's off. You know, there's never any creepy moments like that. He's just picture taker guy because people do that on vacation. And it's like, that's another thing, is that this movie is so boring. Hardly anything like creepy happens in the whole movie, except when it gets like near the end to where they start remembering stuff and having Vietnam flashbacks and shit. Like, that's the only part where anything quote-unquote scary happens. But most of this movie is like a snooze fest. And, but yeah, as I said, these are terrible characters. Like, the main girl has a friend. The friend is actually played by the Freckles girl from The Old Man. And she is like the typical friend in these movies where, like the Stepford Wives, where she senses that something bad is happening and then she disappears or turns into a Stepford Wife robot, is in that movie. So yeah, this movie, it just kind of copies elements from different movies. Like, it copies elements from Stepford Wives. It copies elements from Get Out. And it's just like a very derivative, boring, feminazi movie. This movie would be better like if you got it at Redbox. And yes, I know Redbox is out of business. That's why it would be good to get it at Redbox, because you wouldn't actually be getting it. You would be not watching the movie. Because you could blink twice and then you'll forget all about this bad movie. I mean, it is really that bad. And it gets really bad at the end, too. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what else to say because I didn't really take notes. And it's just, as I said, it's boring. You can tell what's going on. It's not surprising or, like, upsetting at all because it's like, as soon as the movie starts, you know what's going to happen. You know, I mean, yeah. Another thing is, I would say, the directing, in terms of this being her directorial debut, she did an okay job directing, actually. It was really the script that was the problem, but that's very, like, on point for all movies nowadays, is having a bad script. Movies nowadays, they basically say, like, oh, we have all these actors in this movie, so that means the script can be as bad as possible. And it really doesn't matter. You know, we can make this really terrible movie where it's just kind of a boring ripoff of Stepford Wives with even more feminazi bullshit in it. And you'll like the movie because it has Christian Slater and that guy from Scary Movie 3. And Kyle MacLachlan is in it for 3 minutes, you know? Like, it's got good actors. Sorry. And, let's see, what else is there to talk about? Because I know that, oh yeah, there's a really speaking of agendas, there's a really cringeworthy part where, one of the characters actually says the words "believe women" out loud. Yeah, she's saying something like, if I call the police, or I call the FBI, or I call the police, or I call the FBI. Because there's a lot of repetition in this movie of, like, characters saying the same things over and over again, but in different ways sometimes. And then she's like, what am I gonna say? And they're gonna be like, you know, it's like, believe women. And it's like, no, they're not. They're just gonna say, fuck you. And it's like, So, yeah, what's going on this island? Because, again, I don't care about spoilers. This movie sucks. What's going on here is that they're brainwashing the women with, like, perfume. and it makes them forget, and it makes it so that they can rape them as much as they want, and then they forget about it or something. And I think there's also something with this, like, blue liquid drug or something. I have no idea. This movie is, it's just lame. It's really, really lame. There's lots of weird jokes in the movie. Like, there's this one part where, the kid from, the third... What was that movie? The one with the I See Dead People? I've never seen the movie. The something... I can't remember. I've never seen it before. People spoiled the ending to that movie, so I'm not interested in watching it. But, like, he's in this movie, and he wakes up with, like, a dick drawn on his face, and it's like, ha 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 ha! That was such a good joke in 2005! And it's like, there's lots of moments like that in this movie where it's like, was that really meant to be funny? Or was that really meant to be scary? Like, there's another moment where probably one of the weirdest moments in the movie is where they're doing this thing where the main character has to go try to get one of their cell phones, which is locked in a cabinet, and then her friend is trying to, like, stall the bad guys so that they don't go in there and find her. You know, and that's what I said. It's like a typical, like, been there, done that sequence where, like, you know what's going to happen. She's not going to get caught. It's not interesting because it's like, it's totally by the books, by the numbers, paint by numbers. And that's the thing, too. Like, I know that when she made this movie, she probably thought she was doing, like, a Hitchcock type of thing. But Alfred Hitchcock, you know, I know that he had some problems, too. But, and I don't like him, really. I mean, I don't really like anybody unless I know them, like, personally. Like, I really don't like anybody. I'm sorry, but, like, that's a mean thing to say, but, like, it's true. Like, honestly, like, that's the mindset that I have now. But he would subvert what was done before. Like, he talked about how, like, you know, instead of something about North by Northwest, to where, like, or I haven't seen that movie either. I'm not going to talk about that, but he would see what people were doing in other movies, and he would purposefully do the opposite of that, or he would do something that was, like, totally different. You know, like, instead of a scene taking place at night that's supposed to be really scary, he would have it take place in the day. And, like, Zoe Kravitz doesn't do that type of thing in this movie. It's all expected. It's all predictable. It's all something where, like, it's like, yeah, I've seen that before, or that's totally what I expected to happen. You know, none of it feels like it's something new. You know, this movie is not really something new. It's old. It's old news. This movie could have come out in, like, 2010, but it wouldn't have, because it's, like, a weird agenda movie. And that's the other thing, is that, like, I don't know what the primary message is. Like, there's this messaging about forgetting and how ignorance is bliss or something, and I guess that could be the message of the movie, but I really don't know. Because then there's a message where it's like, another character in the movie who's kind of like a survivor girl. She was a contestant on this fake reality show called, like, Hot Survivor Babes. Adria Arjona from Hitman. She says this, like, message, which is, like, clearly a message in the movie that's like, women should support each other and everything. And it's like, what is really the message of this movie? Because it's like, obviously men bad is one of them, but, like, what was the main message? And I'm saying that because the thing that happens at the end is so mind-blowingly stupid and bad for a feminist movie that it kind of, like, ruins everything that came before it, because it's like, you can't have that ending and then still call this a feminist movie. So what happens at the end is that the main character And at a certain point in this movie, too, they just completely drop the clever suspense stuff, and then just people start killing each other. It feels a lot like a student film at the end of this movie. It feels like just amateur hour in terms of, like, just all hell breaks loose. It's just random chaos, nonsense. There's no pretending anymore. Like, there was this really good scene. Adria Arjona, she's probably the best thing about this movie, because she had a really good acting scene to where she had to, they were having dinner together, and she had to pretend like she was doing okay, and then she got into this, like, panic attack to where she was, like, talking about the situation she was in like, a cutesy way. But, like, she did a really, really good job acting in that scene. She was the best thing about this movie, but, yeah, as I said, after all of this pretending, just all hell breaks loose, and people get killed in, like, 3 seconds. All the male characters get killed. There's not really much of any interesting conflict between them to where they have to chase each other or strategically fight each other. You know what I mean? Like, there's not any, like, cat and mouse game. It's just people kind of running around, hitting each other and stabbing each other or shooting each other. So then at the end, there's a big confrontation in, like, the main house or whatever. And the house gets set on fire and everyone else in it gets killed. The main girl and Adria both survive, and the main girl drags out Channing Tatum, who is, like, a proud rapist because I guess he has this kind of, like, villainous backstory to where he was a kid and got abused by his father, of course, because, again, all men bad, women good, and he wants to forget. And so he discovers from that experience that, like, you can do horrible things to people and then make them forget, and then it's totally okay. That's his kind of, like, reasoning, which, yeah, it doesn't really make sense. So, anyways, she drags him out, and you're thinking, like, oh, she's dragging him out because she wants him to get caught. She wants him to go to prison. No, she drags him out so that she can brainwash him and have him as her husband. So that's, like, the ultimate, like, anti-feminist message, is that, like, basically this movie romanticizes rape, and it romanticizes rapists, because honestly, like, you think about the little girl that Roman Polanski raped, speaking of him, would she want him to be her husband and for him to, like, be the perfect guy who would never hurt her? Or would she never want to be around him again? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of like a sickening message at the end, is that, like, I get what it is it's like he's her slave and everything, and it's kind of like a funny reversal of now she gets to control him, but it really doesn't come off that way. It comes off in a way to where it's, like, really, really creepy. Because, again, it's like the whole movie, the women got raped and abused, and so then at the end, the woman is like, oh yeah, it's totally okay for me to rape him and for me to control him and take control of him. You know what I mean? Like, that's a really bad message to send. So, yeah, like, that's a fail. That's definitely a feminazi fail for sure. In terms of food, I have to give this movie, I just had this ice cream flavor that I got from Kroger called Chocolate Cookie Crumble. And, I really like ice cream with like, a cookie in it, or, like, the big cookie that they have in it that, like, you get little pieces of the cookie in the ice cream. But this ice cream didn't really have very much cookie in it at all. It was basically just really bad, mediocre chocolate ice cream. And this movie is the same thing. It's been there, done that. And sorry, guys, I'm totally having anxiety problems doing this review. I don't know why. Maybe it's because this movie was so bad. I just want to get this review over with as quickly as possible. So please like this video, and comment, and maybe I'll do a part 2 of this review because I'm having problems. And then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest reviews about terrible movies, because this movie really did not stick the landing. It crashed. This was like a plane crash. Like, wow, I never would have imagined, like, the girl boss, feminist main character getting with the rapist at the end. So goodbye, everybody. See you soon.